Hey everyone! In this video today, I'm going to be showing you guys how to make this alternating candy stripe friendship bracelet, where the only thing difficult about this bracelet is the math that's involved, and even then, it's not that difficult. So there is a pattern already made online on this bracelet that I will leave down below, but after doing a little bit of testing, I've noticed that this bracelet actually has a lot of variation to it. And I don't have the bracelets that I tested physically with me anymore, but I did actually take pictures a while back to save for this video so I can put them up on the screen while I'm talking about them. So the pattern originally calls for 10 strings, but you can actually do almost as many strings as you want. I wouldn't do any less than 10, but you do have to keep a few things in mind that I'll talk about. So you can see this is 10 strings. I also did one with 12, and then I did one with 16 as well, and you can see that the color order is a little bit different on that one. And this pattern is actually online, but I don't know what number it is, so if anyone can find it, let me know and I will put that in the description as well. And then you'll notice with this bracelet here, I attempted to make my stripes an even number instead of an odd number. And that's where the string amount is going to play an important role in this bracelet. So you can see I did 4 stripes, but this isn't really the look that we're going for, so I highly recommend doing an odd number of stripes for this bracelet. So for both of these, I have 10 strands, and all of them are their own color. And the string count is a multiple of the amount of stripes plus 1. And once you actually see the strings laid out, while we're making this bracelet, you'll understand why we need that plus 1. So here are my 10 colors that I'm using today. I like to use DMC for my friendship bracelets, but you can use any kind of craft cord, and you can even buy your cheap thread from Walmart. Seriously, anything is going to work for this. As far as measuring your strands goes, this is going to be different for everybody. So I can't really give you a set amount to start with because it really just depends on how big your wrist is. But for just a bit of frame of reference, I make my strands about 35 inches each, and that is long enough to make a 6-inch bracelet with extra inches of ties on both ends. And the easiest way to measure all of your strands, especially when you have separate colors for each strand, is to seriously just group them all up together and measure them together and then cut them together. And this way you don't have to measure everything individually. It just makes everything go by so much quicker. And you can use a ruler to measure, or you can just kind of guess the length that you want to use. But one thing I like using is a good old-fashioned tape measure. I prefer tape measures over rulers because I can find out exactly what length I'm going to cut my strands because this is 25 feet. I don't have to worry. Okay, and now that we have all of that mess out of the way, I'm going to quickly clean all this up. Alright, once you have your strings ready, you want to go ahead and tie a pretty loose knot at the end of your bracelet and leave quite a good few inches of tail space so that way when you finish you can undo your knot and you can braid your ends or do whatever you want to do with them, but leave a pretty good sized tail. And I like to use a clipboard for my bracelet making just because it is extremely secure, but you can tape it down. You can use a safety pin, your jeans, your pillow, whatever. But if you do want to tape your strings down to your workstation, I highly advise against washi tape because it ends up being so much more trouble than it's worth. It's not very sticky at all, and you'll end up having to use a bunch of pieces just to keep your bracelet weight down. So a clipboard is my favorite option, but do whatever is going to work best for you. Then we want to organize our strands in whatever color order that you want. Just keep in mind that depending on how you want your order to go in, we are going from left to right. So put your first color on the left and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. So kind of not a good rainbow, but here I have my 10 strands laid out. And like I said before, we are going from left to right, so we are always going to start our row with our outermost left strand. And if you put this out of the way, you can see why we need this +1. Because if you break it up, you can see our 9 strands here, and if you divide that by 3, this is where we're going to be able to get our 3 stripes. This outer left strand is just going to help us be more accurate with our sectioning. So we have 3, 3, 3, plus the 1. So taking our outermost left strand, what we want to do first is we want to make 3 forward knots on our first 3 strands. So we are going to pick up our working strand, which is our outermost left strand, and we are going to take the string next to it and do a knot onto it. And a regular knot, no matter what kind of knot it is always going to consist of 2 ties onto that string. So when you think about it, when you tie a knot on your shoes or on something else, you always tie it twice so it's more secure. Well, that is also the case in friendship bracelet making. And the easiest way to think of a forward knot is to make a 4 shape over our first strand. Or another easy way to think about it is when you do a forward knot, the left strand is always going to cross over the right strand. So in order to make a forward knot, we have our first base strand and our working strand on our outermost left side, and you're going to make a 4. And then what you want to do is bring this working strand and cross it under that base strand and pull it through this hole right here. Pull that all the way through and you'll notice that you have the beginning of a forward knot. So you're going to pull that up all the way to the top, and you want to be a little bit careful because this is our very first row and it can get a little messy up there. So just make sure that while you do want to have pretty tight tension with bracelets in general, be a little bit more gentle on the first row. And then we need to do this one more time on our base strand. So again, we make a 4, go through this hole under our base strand, pick up our working strand, pull that all the way through, and then pull it tight, but not too tight. And that is your first forward knot. So now that we're finished knotting onto this base strand, we can go ahead and pick it up and just put it off to the side because we need to do this 2 more times. So you can see our working strand is not on the outermost left side anymore. It's the second in the row. So right next to it, we have our second base strand. And again, we're going to repeat what we just did the first time. We're doing another forward knot. So make a 4, go under our base strand through our gap, pick up our working strand, pull that through, and now we have half of our forward knot. Another 4, go through this gap under our base strand, pull that through, and now we have our second forward knot. And one thing I do want to mention really quick while we are working on this is while I am knotting up here, I am intentionally trying to make my knots go in sort of a downward slant. Because if you've ever made a candy stripe before, you'll notice that they don't go straight across. They may start that way, but a true candy stripe is going to slant downwards, like you can see here. Now our working strand has passed over our second base strand. We can put that off to the side. We are going to pick up the next base strand that is next to our working strand, and we are going to do one more forward knot. So one more time, make a shape of a 4, go under this loop under the base strand, pick up our working strand, pull that all the way through, and pull firmly, but not too tight. And then we do that one more time. And that is a full forward knot. And we just finished our first 3 forward knots, and we can keep these out of the way, but make sure you still have them in the correct order so that way you don't get mixed up later on. And now in order to do our middle stripe here to make it become alternating, if you remember what I said before, a forward knot is where the left string always crosses over the right. But in this case, we're doing 3 backward knots on our next 3 strands. So this time, our base strand here is going to temporarily become the working strand onto our previous working strand, which will now be the base strand. So we're going to pick up our base strand and we are going to use it to knot this time. And in order to make a backwards knot, you reverse the forward knot, of course. So instead of making a 4 shape, we are making a P shape. So like this. So we have our P. We're going to put our fingers through this hole right here and go under our base strand, so that way we can pick up our working strand and pull it through. And there is part 1 of our backward knot. Then we make a P again, over our working strand, under our base strand, pull our working strand through. And we just made a backward knot. And we are still carrying that strand over, even though it did technically become our new working strand, because you can see, for example, with, like, let's say the purple, it's getting carried across the whole bracelet because we want to be able to bring that color back out into our 3rd stripe. So we need to knot on top of it to carry it over, where we will then go back to using it as our working strand. And now we have our next color in line here, and we're going to repeat what we did before. Make our P shape, go underneath our base strand through the hole, pick up that working strand and pulling it through, P shape, over this working strand, under this base strand, pick up that strand and then pull it through, and pull firmly but gently. And now we need to do this one more time to complete our middle stripe. So we're going to pick up our new color that is next to our first color, and again we're doing that P shape, going through the gap here and going under that strand, pulling it through, and that's part 1, and there's part 2. Now we have just completed 3 of our backward knots, and now we can go back to using our very first color as our working strand on top of our last 3 strands. And for our last 3, like I said before, we are going to be doing forward knots on each one of these strands. So let's start here, make our 4, go through our gap underneath our base strand and pull that working strand through. One more time. And then pull it through again and make that knot. And then that base strand can be put off to the side. Pick up our next color in line. And again, we make that 4. Go underneath our base strand and pick up the working strand, pull that through one time. And then there's our second one. Put that base strand off to the side yet again, like we have been doing over here. And now we just have one more string right here to knot onto. So one more time, make that 4, go through this hole underneath our base strand, sort of pinch our working strand and pull that through. There's one time. And then there's our last time. And now you will see that your first color that was once all the way on the left side is now all the way on the right. And then your second color becomes your new working strand. And this is what you repeat the whole way through the bracelet until you have your desired length. One thing that will help while you make this bracelet is to start it over from the beginning, where we first set everything up, and just follow it the exact same way, except remember that your colors are now in a new order. When you start it from the beginning, you can watch it again and keep replaying it as many times as you need to be able to understand just exactly how we make this bracelet. But that is all for this video today. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If there's anything that you don't understand, do not hesitate to let me know and I will answer any of your questions or comments. I will also have some extra helpful links in case there is something I didn't explain well enough or something you're confused about even still. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you who comment, subscribe, watch my videos, everything. It really means so much to me, and it's really awesome to see how many people are still making bracelets today, really. Happy knotting, and I will see you in the next one.